Hello and welcome to Lutz and Glory. I'm Bronwyn.
And I'm Kathy.
Unfortunately, Will had a last-minute cancellation, couldn't make this week's recap of the 2015 NHK Trophy, but thankfully we got someone to come in last minute. Our lovely friend. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. This is Megan. I am coming to you from Milwaukee tonight. I have found my love for skating on Twitter. Michelle Kwan is my favorite of all time. Right now, I'm a big fan of Satoko, Ashley, and Mirai, so I'm excited to talk about all of them tonight since they were all here. I do a little guest blogging on the USFSA Fan Zone. You might know me from there, but I am so excited to have been invited here tonight, so thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, and thank you so much for joining us on this week's podcast. So we're going to get started with the big story of the weekend. Everyone knows about it. Everyone's heard about it. Yuzuru Hanyu, 300 points, 200 points in the free, smashed his old world record. Definitely the big highlight of the event, and deservedly so. These were his two cleanest performances in a long time. He nailed all his quads. Everything looked so easy, like effortless. It was, honestly, there are no words to describe just how it makes you feel. Absolutely historical. And one that people will be talking about for the rest of time. The long program especially. It's his best long program in years. Definitely. The choreography is great. The music's great. He connects to it so well. So, and all, like I said, all the jumps looked so easy. Like, almost anyone could do it, even though nobody else could do that. And honestly, Patrick Chan should be watching his back. Terrified, absolutely. What are your guys' thoughts on Yuzuru's performances here at NHK?
It was funny because before the competition, when he announced that he was upping the technical content in his short program, putting in two quads instead of the triple he used to have, I think a lot of us were really worried if he was going to be able to pull it off because a lot of us wanted to see a clean short program from him, and we thought, with the harder jumps, it might not happen, but, he exceeded all expectations. And, both of these programs are so strong for him. They're so different in style and in character, I think, but they work equally well. And I think that goes to show, the just breadth of ability and flair that he's really earned himself as a skater. And it's interesting. I was reading Jackie Wong's opinion piece. We love Jackie. We interact with him on Twitter all the time. I was reading his opinion piece on Yuzuru's obviously world records, and he said something that I thought was really interesting. He said, it's all about context when you're judging, the greatness of a performance, the historical significance, if you will. And so his point was that while the NHK trophy, it's not the Olympics and it's not Worlds, it doesn't really take away from the magnitude of what he's achieved, especially because he was able to do this under immense pressure, in front of a hometown crowd and deliver, everything that he set out to do.
I think kind of going off of what Bronwyn had said, I really feel like this performance was a message. It was the message to Patrick Chan, who talked badly about how Yuzuru did last year. It was a message to Boyang Jin and all of his quads to say, hey, I have them too. I have the PCS and the TES. I can beat you on both ends. I'm here to play. And it was fantastic to finally see him do two clean programs. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting for them. I just feel like he wasn't at his best last season, so to see him come to this event and just put together an entire performance was amazing. He doesn't just have the jumps, and he doesn't just have the footwork and the spins. It was all one cohesive piece. And with so many skaters, it's like piecemeal. You know, he's the one skater I think this season so far that's really just put it all together. I was so excited to watch it.
No, absolutely. I can definitely agree with that. I feel like Yuzuru definitely proved that he's in a league of his own at this point. Everyone was kind of questioning where he would come back after last year after losing his world title. And he just proved that he is here to stay. And honestly, I think this puts him as a heavy favorite in any competition going forward, depending on how well he does in the next event he competes in, honestly. You mentioned Boyang Jin and his quads. Well, Boyang finished second here at the NHK trophy. I think people, because Yuzuru hadn't been so consistent this season, people were kind of wondering maybe Boyang would win. And although he did get massive scores here, especially in the short program, and the TES, deservedly so, deserves many points. However, you notice his PCS is starting to rise, and I'm not sure I agree with that personally, just because he is still undeveloped. I do think, and you mentioned Jackie, Kathy, Jackie did point out that Boyang does have potential to do very well with the PCS if he's developed correctly. However, his focus clearly is right now on the jumps. And I don't know if I agree that his overall skating has improved that much since Cup of China to warrant such a PCS rise. He almost got 40 in the short program, and he scored about a 95, which is huge, one of the best men's scores that we've seen. So what are your thoughts on Boyang, and how do you think he can improve? Because obviously he has the jumps, just everything else.
What I noticed, especially in his short program, is that the choreography uses the music well. It's set up to, enunciate the nuances in the music. He just needs to go along with it. It's choreographed, but it doesn't come from the heart. It doesn't come from his face. He really needs to work on his face. That's only going to come with time, though. I'm really not sure if there's anything right now he can do. For this season, those quads are going to carry him through. I was proud that he stood up to the pressure at this event because I think he was expected to get on the podium. I expected him second. Glad he came through here. So it kind of shows he's got the mental game down, hopefully. Obviously, lots to improve on the PCS. I also thought they were too high.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's going to be, a long-term progress. It's not something that you can fix overnight. And at this point, I think his programs are almost overwhelming him in terms of him not really being able to live up to that choreography, the immensity of the music, if you will. But I mean, all things considered, silver at both of his Grand Prix events in his first senior season is super impressive. And I think that this will allow him, the freedom to go back and develop those things that he might have overlooked in his, path to get all those super impressive jumps. And I think that at this point, it would benefit him to go back and look at the basics and, maybe rework those edges and look at the way that he's moving just overall, and, possibly work with a dance coach or somebody who can help him, be a more balletic skater or be more in control of just the way that he's carrying out that choreography. But obviously, the potential is there, and I expect, loads of great things from him in the future.
No, I definitely agree. So Yuzuru and Boyang both qualified for the Grand Prix final in Barcelona, along with Shoma Uno of Japan, Patrick Chan of Canada, Javier Fernandez of Spain, and Daisuke Murakami of Japan as well. 3 Japanese men in the final, no Russian men, and we can talk briefly about that later. But those are our Grand Prix finalists going forward. Do you have any thoughts on those?
It's going to be such an exciting field at the final. I mean, when you say names like Yuzuru Hanyu, Javier Fernandez, Patrick Chan, Uno, you see them on the podium. And that's four names that I just mentioned. Not to mention, if any of those men were to fall off their quads, you have Boyang Jin that's going to land a lot of them. I think, unfortunately, Daisuke might be kind of out of the picture, but I'm really glad he made the final. He skated really well, and I love his short program. After the way Yuzu skated this week, could you really even see him losing? I'm just excited to see him go up against Chan again. I'd like to see both of them at their best and see what happens. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really a mental game more than anything else, because it's about, we know what these skaters are capable of. They're the best of the best, but it's going to come down to, who can deliver in that, pressure cooker of an environment where, so much is on the line, because the Grand Prix final, obviously, it can be a predictor for the championships later down in the road, like for continents and Europeans and the World Championships. So it's going to be interesting to see if those results repeat themselves, and how, because I have a feeling that they're going to fluctuate for the rest of the season, just depending on what kind of condition these skaters are, how they recuperate from competition to competition. So that'll be, interesting to see.
No, definitely. And finishing in third at this competition, kind of a surprise. I don't think anyone expected him to do so well. Takahito Mura of Japan, skating the best he has since he won Skate Canada last year. Kind of like I said, unexpected here. He's been struggling with his consistency ever since his Skate Canada win. But he skated a flawless short program and a very strong long program too, to finish in third here and win the bronze medal. And I definitely like his programs a lot more this season as opposed to last season. Not that his programs last season were necessarily bad, but he skated to Carmen and Phantom of the Opera, which are two war horses that just blended in with the crowd. Whereas this season, he's using music that nobody else is using. So very, very happy for him to see him back on the podium. Not sure if he'll be able, because Japanese men only have 2 spots this season, it's going to be a close competition for that second spot behind Yuzuru Hanyu. So what are your thoughts on Takahito's performance here?
I was so happy for Mura. To see him skate well was just so exciting, because we know he can do it. He just hasn't done it recently. I love his short program. He had a beautiful triple axel moment there in the short program. It was so high and beautiful. It was right in front of those judges. It was great. I'm really glad they changed the long program shirt. The one that he wore at Skate America was just not, it was distracting, honestly. So to see him put together 2 clean performances was great. He landed quads, but at the end of the day, he just didn't land as many as Yuzu and Boyang, and that's really what put him behind. This is a great skate for him. I hope he can take some confidence to Japanese nationals, but with Hanyu and Uno, it's gonna be really tough. But you do have to think that if you send someone like Yuzu and Uno to Worlds this year, that the Japanese men might finally get their 3rd spot back for the following season. What do you think, Kathy?
I agree with what you said about the short program. I love the moments that he took in to sort of draw in the judges and sort of look them in the eye and skate right in front of them, almost like a issuing a challenge. I really enjoy when skaters take those moments in their programs to do that, and it was great to see him back in form, because he's a skater who struggles with consistency sometimes. Bronwyn mentioned this. He is really up and down with his results. He had a disappointing outing really at Skate America, where he finished close to the bottom of the heap, and that's we know that he's capable of so much more than that, and he showed us that here, which is really nice to see. I think that even if he doesn't make the world team at nationals, which, is probably what's going to happen. I think that regardless, this is a good boost for his confidence, and it shows him and it shows us that, he's not to be counted out yet at this point.
No, I definitely agree. And the short program that we were raving about, it is worth mentioning briefly that program is the first choreographic outing for Charlie White, 2014 Olympic champion. So it's very exciting to see his choreography come to fruition. And now moving on real quick to the fourth place finisher here. Again, kind of a surprise, and honestly a major surprise of the Grand Prix season in my opinion. Grant Hochstein. What a great season for him so far. His long program was stunning, absolutely stunning. He finished fourth here overall. He finished fourth at Cup of China, and he's definitely put himself in the running for a good finish at U.S. Nationals, in my opinion. He's got great artistry and programs this year. I especially love the short program. Anyone who uses Anati, in my opinion, wins major points. But yeah, definitely a great showing for him here. Like I said, I think he has put himself in the contention for a world, maybe a world spot. We'll see. But it is worth noting that Adam Rippon, who is definitely in contention for a world spot, but also finished fourth at both Grand Prix events, and probably one of the best showing by U.S. men. Definitely major props to him. What do you guys think of Grant?
I was super proud of how Grant did at both of his events. Before this, it had been a long time since he had gotten even a single Grand Prix assignment. So to come back onto the scene and to deliver like this was really exciting. And I think he's always been one of those dark horses in U.S. men's. But especially this season, we're seeing all these skaters who've always kind of been there, but are all of a sudden, up-and-comers. We've got Tim Delensky and Ross Minor and now Grant, and so it's going to make for a really exciting nationals where, all of these skaters sort of have something to prove, and they're going to be bringing, their A game, and I think the results are going to be close, definitely.
I think you guys make a good point. I mean, the men's field at nationals is really crowded, and there's a lot of names there. So I give Grant huge props for inserting his name in the conversation. No one's going to put your name in the conversation in that kind of a field. You just have to do it. You have to put your name in there. He had a great Grand Prix series. I mean, kudos to him. I was really excited to see that for him.
Absolutely. And something worth mentioning is that I had said before, there will be no Russian men in the Grand Prix final this year. And part of that is because Maxime Kovtun, who finished fourth in the short program, had a disaster of a long program, and it fortunately ended up in 10th place here. Kind of a shocker to see him finish so low, especially because he has finished as high as fourth at Worlds before. His jumps definitely were not with him at this event, unfortunately. But we will definitely be able to see a decent amount of formidable competitors in the Grand Prix finals. Just very odd to not have a Russian man at the Grand Prix final. So let's move on to pairs. Meghan de Himmel and Eric Radford, again, kind of expected to win this event, and they did. Definitely finishing in first here. Very strong. They always have good showings. I don't think they've ever had a complete disaster of a program, and that's commendable, in my opinion. The short program was a bit rough, in my opinion. Not their strongest outing at so far, but I do like their programs a lot more this season. The programs last season, especially, I did not like the short program. The music was very grating, but the long program started off fresh, kind of ended up stale. I think these programs are some of their best efforts. Definitely trying to get better at the PCS mark while also maintaining a high TES mark, in my opinion. But what are your guys' thoughts on Meghan and Eric at this event?
I definitely prefer, I agree with you that I prefer their programs this season to their programs last season. I think this season they've sort of opted for more kind of stripped down pieces of music where it's really about the vocals, as opposed to more nuanced music that might be harder to portray, for a pairs team out on the ice. And the thing about them is that, I think last season they were kind of getting comfortable with the idea of winning every event without, having to be perfect. I think at one point they gave an interview and Eric said, we made mistakes, but it was okay because we could afford to make mistakes and still win the event. And I think that coming into this season, I think that might not be the case anymore, with Sui and Han on the rise, with, Kavaguti Smirnov stronger than ever before, with Stobov and Klimov, and all of these other pairs teams in the mix. I think that they have to start. They're really aiming for 2 quad throws in the free skate, and I think they have to start cleaning up those jumps, addressing their errors if they want to maintain their position at the top, because they have a lot of teams, nipping at their heels.
I would agree with that. I feel like their performance here was everything they needed to do. In the field, just because of their scoring potential, they were heavy favorites. They did what they needed to do to win. They had a lot of jump issues, especially in the free skate. She especially had a couple of issues there. They got a -3 GOE on their throw quad sal, and that's a lot of points to lose. This team kind of lives and dies by their TES mark, their big elements, and I agree with what Kathy said. They're really kind of losing some of those elements in the performance here. Hopefully they can perform better at the final. They're going to need to. I 100% agree with that. There's other teams that I feel have stronger programs overall, and so it's going to be interesting to see them matched up at the final. One thing I always feel about this team is that he actually draws my eye more than she does. I find that he's so much more engaging to watch. A, he's beautiful, but B, I think it has a lot to do with just his face. Like, he's really genuinely gifted at performing to music. So I always enjoy watching him, but it's just strange because normally when you watch a pair, you watch the woman. So kudos to Eric Radford.
I think it's worth noting that the Russian team, Voloshyzur and Trinkov, were slated to be at this event, and I think people were expecting sort of a showdown between the two teams. Unfortunately, Voloshyzur and Trinkov had to withdraw due to injury, I believe. So I feel that may have eased some of the pressure off of Duhamel Radford. Still, like we talked about, far from perfect performances, but I think that, part of the reason that they were able to come out and do what they did may have been due to the fact that they didn't really have that much competition. They expected to win, and they did.
No, I agree. It would be interesting to see if they perform the same, but Voloshyzur and Trinkov are here, especially because Voloshyzur and Trinkov have no interest in doing any quads. And they've come out and said that they don't want to do any quads except perhaps a quad twist, but otherwise, no. It would have been very interesting to see that. Unfortunately, Voloshyzur and Trinkov did have to withdraw, so this is the event we came up with. Moving on to the second place finishers, Yu and Jin. Very strong showing for them. Again, I love their programs. They do have to keep the same programs from last year. Would be nice to see them get new programs. However, they perform them so beautifully. They're such a talented, gifted team. I think that the Chinese, like we've talked, saying the praises of the Chinese pairs so many times, and deservedly so. I think that they are the most well-rounded pairs in the world, in my opinion, just in terms of technique and artistry combined. But Yu and Jin needed to finish in second place here to go to the Grand Prix final, and they did. So kudos to them for getting the job done and returning to the Grand Prix final for a second consecutive year, something that wasn't predicted going into the season, but very great to see. What are your thoughts on them?
I really like this team. They have really great pair elements. Their strengths are, you know, the twists and the throws and the jumps and the spins. Their unison is fantastic, one of the best in the field. I was happy to see them come through here and get to the final again. I don't believe they've ever been to Worlds, correct?
No, they didn't, because Ping and Tong came back last season.
Exactly. So I think for them, this is kind of what they're aiming for. You know, at the end of the season, it would be great for them to get there. This is a huge step. I love her dresses. I love their costumes. I know they're repeated programs, but I think they work well for them. So I was happy to see them step up, but their elements are really great. I think I'm a fan that loves face. So she's got to give a little bit more on the face. They need a little Sui and Han. Like Sui and Han this season have really stepped it up in the performance game. And I know they're not the same kinds of programs, but I'd like to see them, you know, get there. And I'm sure that they will.
What's really impressive about Jin to me is just the seamless quality of everything that they do. You know, as cliched as this sounds, it feels like they're one with the music. Like you can't really separate, you know, the skater from the performer in that sense. And I think that that's definitely an advantage for them, especially considering, you know, how young they are and the fact that this is only their, you know, second full senior season, and the fact that they've made it to the Grand Prix final both seasons is really remarkable. And I think that, you know, they have a really subtle brand of artistry, and it's not in your face or over the top like a lot of the other Paris teams can be, which is not, you know, always a bad thing, but it's nice to see something that's a little more low-key, a little more down to the basics, and it really highlights just the quality of their edges, of everything that they do that's not ostentatious, but at the end of the day makes for great skating.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I agree with what you said, Megan. Something I hadn't actually thought about very hard, but I would like to see a little bit more oomph in their performances. But they will definitely get there. They are still young. I think that with time they will be probably one of the leading pairs going forward, in my opinion. They have just so much talent and potential that I think that they'll be able to make it to the top of the, with time they'll be able to make it to the top of the world's podium. And now finally for our third place finishers, Alexa Skimeka. Did I say that right?
Sameka, I think.
Sameka. Okay, hang on. I'm going to try that again. Because no matter how many times I try, I cannot pronounce her last name. Okay. Now, okay, moving on to the third place finishers here, Alexa Skimeka and Chris Knierim, first American pairs to qualify for the Grand Prix final in a long time. Very exciting, in my opinion. I think this is a great step forward for American pairs, and honestly, while I think that they do have a little bit of work to do in the artistry area, especially in the long, I think their elements are world class. Absolutely, when they are on. The quad twist, the triple twist are both outstanding. They have good throws. They have good, like I said, all their pairs elements are fantastic. And they're definitely probably our most complete pair that we've had in a while, and one that is competitive at the world level. I do like the short program. I think the short program, although it is a bit awkward in places when it gets to the, hits to the moment in the music where it's just like, it's like the peak of the music, I think that they are absolutely better. And I feel like Alexa, one of my issues with the short program is that she tends to give, I know you like face and I like face too, but she does tend to do a little bit too much, but she toned it down this week, and I thought it made the program a lot better, and it was a lot less distracting. I was very happy for both Alexa and Chris. Looking forward to seeing them in Barcelona. Megan, I know you're a big fan of them. What are your thoughts?
I was very happy for these two. I think for them, getting to the final is exactly what their career needs. It's kind of what you need to be seen in a different category. I know that their short program isn't exactly my aesthetic either. I wouldn't pick it, but I think it's one of those situations where it just works well for them. I think it helps them get into like the mental state that they need to be in to compete well, and it scores well. So at the end of the day, it's really not. It's a win-win. A win with the judges, a win with them. Um, they had an issue on the quad twist in the long program, which was out of character. It's kind of hard when one of the elements that you're known for you get a negative GOE on. But they stood up on their jumps much better here. It's been their like thorn in their side a lot. Chris keeps putting his hand down, so I'm hoping by the final he'll be so confident that he doesn't have to put his hand down. But in general, it was good that they stood up and did well here. I'm excited to see them at the final, and they can go to the final and just kind of relax and enjoy the experience. No one expects them to be on the podium, so good for them. Kathy?
Yeah, I think. Ooh, sorry.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that them making the final is really significant because I think it's going to boost the morale of U.S. pairs teams as a whole because the U.S. is a country that hasn't exactly been known for its pairs in recent years, but this could be the start of the reversal of that trend. And one thing that I really enjoy about this team is that they have this sort of tension between the two of them, and I know that sounds bad, but it's almost like they're pushing each other to be better all the time, and it's a positive force, It's not that they don't get along. I mean, they're literally engaged. We know they get along, but the fact that there's sort of a back and forth between the two of them is really nice to see. And Brown, I like what you said about Alexa toning down the sort of facial expressions in the short program because I think that when Alexa over emotes, if you will, I think that tends to draw attention to the fact that Chris isn't so keen on doing that. So I think that can be a weakness, and the fact that they're more equal now in terms of expression is really great to see because now they feel more like a team. They feel more complementary to each other as opposed to her doing all the expressing and him doing all the lifting. So it's more of a balance, and that's great to see.
No, I can definitely agree with that. On a completely shallow note, Alexa looks fantastic in her short program costume.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. So kudos to her for that. But yeah, on a not so shallow note, it's very great to see American pairs doing so well. And even what you said about boosting the morale of American pairs, Kathy, we even saw lots of pair skater congratulating them on Twitter, which it's already providing a positive effect. And I'm looking forward to nationals. I think it's going to be a great competition. So our Grand Prix final for pairs are Duhamel and Radford, Yoon Jin, and Skamika and Kanarum all made it in with this competition. They are joined by Kavaguti and Smirnov, Soboba and Klimov, and Sui and Han. What are your thoughts on this pairs field? I think pairs is the most open discipline this year. I think it'll be a great battle for the podium.
It's so interesting to see all of these teams adding all of these quad elements. It's really come to the forefront in pairs this season. So I'm kind of hoping we see like a quad show at the final. Overall, I feel like Sui and Han kind of have the most complete, strongest programs. So I'd like to see them really use some of those quads maybe at the final. It's going to be a great group. And I believe Seguin and Bilodeau from Canada also got in right with the 7th qualifier from Trophy Bompard. Loved them. I thought they skated really well this season. They're not going to really be in the medal mix, but I think it was great that they were rewarded for their good programs. And we get a preview of Russian nationals as we see 2 Russian teams. What are you excited to see at the final, Kathy?
Like you said, I'm just looking for a good show because this is such a stacked field by any means, and it's interesting because all the teams have different strengths. I don't think any one team is like another, and so it'll be interesting to see, what comes to the forefront in terms of, the judging, what the judges really pick up on and choose to reward, because that can differ, from, as we've seen, from competition to competition. There are the teams that are that had the technical goods, like we talked about. There are teams that are better in artistry and musical interpretation. And so at the end of the day, it's about, who can put it all together and who can stay clean under pressure. And so I think it's gonna be a great competition.
No, I definitely agree with you. Now moving on to our third discipline of the evening. The ladies, kind of not what we were expecting though. But the one person who did stay on her feet and skated extremely well, Tiny Queen, Satoko Miyahara. Two fabulous programs from her. I especially love the short program is one of my favorites of the season. She's only gotten better with the interpretation, and it's actually helped her improve her facial expressions and just projecting to the audience. Oh, I love the short program, you guys. There are just some moments of choreography. My favorite part is right after the slow part where it goes into the faster part, and she looks at the judges and she starts her choreography. Absolutely fantastic competition for her, and this win, I believe, her first Grand Prix win. So definitely very excited for her. What are your thoughts on Satoko?
It was very exciting to see her win. After she got third at Skate America, I was a little worried for her, but she came to this event and she came ready. 100% deserved this win when you look at the way that the rest of the field skated, especially. She was the only one that showed up in both programs. I also love the short program. She's one of my favorites. I think going to what Kathy said, Satoko has a good balance between being subtle and also still giving us visual interest on her face. I think she's really improved on that this season. I think the long program was a perfect choice of music for her. It just so accentuates her gracefulness and her lines. They made a couple of little adjustments to her costumes, which I loved. They added some black to her short program costume, and they adjusted the neckline of the free skate costume, which I think was a good move as well. She looked great here. And I think for her, this kind of puts her again in kind of another category, having finally won, scoring over 200, all very good things for Satoko.
Yeah, this was a mini really breakthrough for Satoko, not only in terms of scoring, but in terms of, rising above people's expectations. I think that since she was going head to head with Mao Asada here, before the competition, a lot of people were speculating, can she hold up to the pressure? Can she deliver next to, a three-time world champion? And what I love about Satoko especially is that her programs are packaged so well and they're so age appropriate. I think that what you see a lot of times with teenage skaters is that they seem to be skating to music that either seems too mature for them or seems not mature enough, and juniorish. And I think that that's never been a problem with Satoko. She and her team really understands what she needs and what kind of vehicles suit her best for her to deliver that connection with the music and those elements. And I love her free skate especially. I love the spiral and the footwork and everything about it. I think it's really nuanced without feeling like sometimes when a program has, is chock full of transitions and different steps, in and out of the jumps, you notice that and you think, oh, they're trying to, they're blatantly trying to earn as many points as possible, but I don't think that's a problem ever with Satoko. You don't notice the fact that she's making full use of her programs. She just does. And so it was great to see her win here. And another interesting thing to note, all of the Grand Prix events this season were won. Each of them was won by a different lady. Three of the ladies here, Satoko, Mao, and Ashley, all made it to the final.
So, you mentioned, Kathy, that three women from this event are going on to the Grand Prix final. We have Satoko Miyahara, Mao Asada, and Ashley Wagner. They are being joined by Gracie Gold, Yevgenia Medvedeva, and Elena Radionova. Definitely another very intense event. Like you said, all six of them have each won a different Grand Prix event. So I think this field, if they can hit, is going to be intense. Who do you think is favored the most for the podium? Because I can't decide.
What's really exciting about this field is that there's 2 women from the US, 2 from Japan, and 2 from Russia. So each skater is essentially skating against their rival in this competition. It's almost going to be more about that than who stacks up in the whole ranking. But because each skater is skating against their rival, I think everybody's really going to be motivated. You know that each one of those skaters has a little something to prove. For me, if I really had to pick a favorite, I'm hoping Mao can kind of pull it together and top that field. She really is in a class of her own, but those jumps have to be there. But it's going to be a very exciting fight.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to predict an event like this where each of the ladies has been sort of up and down in her own way over the course of the Grand Prix series. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping, like Meghan, that Mao will come out on top. But really, it's anyone's game because you have the Russians who are so strong. You have the 2 Japanese ladies who have really something to prove, and then you have the American ladies who obviously can't be counted out either. I know that both are gunning for a place on that podium because so a lot of the American ladies will be gunning for the top because, as we've talked about, the U.S. hasn't been at the top of the top in terms of figure skating in singles, and a lot of journalists bemoan that fact. And but it'll be interesting to see how much just sheer motivation plays into these results, because that can be, such a powerful driving force when it comes to, the will to best your competition.
No, I can definitely see that. Definitely will be a great event. I think I keep saying that because I think that these are great Grand Prix final fields. And another great Grand Prix final field is ice dance. So let's close out our podcast with this event. Maya and Alex Shibutani had Twitter on fire during the free dance. I have not met a single person who dislikes this free dance. And honestly, I can understand that. I completely agree. It's just, they are hungry and you can tell that they want it. And it shows through their skating. I think the free dance is an absolutely stunning program, and it works so well for them. And especially when they get to everyone talks about this too, when they get to the twizzles and the music just picks up, and it just brings the excitement back to ice dance, in my opinion. And it's worth noting, although they do not qualify to the Grand Prix final in first place because of their silver at Skate Canada, they won their Grand Prix event with the highest total of any ice dance team this season, which is kind of unexpected for a team that is considered American number 2 in general. However, I think that they might overtake Chalk and Bates this season, just because Chalk and Bates do not have as strong of programs. So it's definitely great to see that from them. What were your thoughts on Shibutani's free dance, short dance, just their overall performance? And where do you think they stand in relation to not only Chalk and Bates, but to all the other teams in the Grand Prix final?
I think that this event was a huge step for the Shibutanis. Being perceived as the second American team, sometimes that's really hard to overcome. But for them, this event was so good. They have won Grand Prix before in 2011, but it's been a while since they've been back there. This free dance is the perfect vehicle for them. It kind of reminds me of what Papadakis and Cicerone had with their free dance last season. It just gives you a moment. You have a moment with them. And I think it's especially nice to have a free dance that's strong. It's twice as long. It's the end of the competition, twice as many points. they just are fantastic. And those Twizzles are the best of the field, absolutely. So happy for them, so proud of them.
I definitely think that, it's still hard to say at this point in the season, but I would consider the Shibutanis to have an edge over Chalk and Bates at this point, especially after we've seen Chalk and Bates make some errors in the free dance. It's still relatively new to them, and I think that overall the Shibutanis have just a lot more passion and commitment to their programs than Chalk and Bates. I mean, both are equally, excellent teams, but I think that when it comes down to these two going head to head, I think that, honestly, on the Grand Prix final podium, I think there's only room for one American team, and, my bets are on the Shibutanis, definitely.
No, I can definitely agree with that. So, just briefly mentioning Bobrova and Soloviev, definitely making a strong comeback from their injury last season, finishing in second here. And we also have in third place the other American team, the technical winners of the Trophy Eric Bompard, Madison Hubble and Zachary Donahue. Finally getting to do their free dance after a really long period of time. I really enjoy the free dance as well. I think the music works so well for them. There's just some really cool choreographic moments. I think I believe the second lift on the beat of the music that's completely quiet, where she just arches her back at the right moment, works so well. Definitely really enjoyed this program, and I think that they, along with the Shibutanis, are looking the sharpest, in my opinion. Just the other teams have not been as aggressive and on point as they have been so far. What are your thoughts on them?
This was a really exciting thing for them. Making it to the final is huge. Again, like the Shibutanis, they're kind of trying to get up in the ranks, in terms of what everyone views about American ice dance. And I think that they really did that here. Just like the Shibutanis have a moment in their free dance, you have a moment with them in their short dance. I love the short dance. The costumes, the music, they just skate so emotionally to it. I think in the free dance they might have been a little nervous because I felt the performance was maybe a little restrained, but that program has incredible potential. Like you said, those choreographic moments could really, get them there. I preferred the black dress that she wore at the U.S. Classic to this white one. I know she's portraying an angel, so white is like the thing you think of, but I think it's almost distracting because there's too much contrast between him and her. But overall, I love the wing effect of her dress. I can't wait to see this program again at Nationals in a couple months when they've had more time to work on it, but making the final for them is absolutely huge.
Yeah, I agree, and I enjoy both of their programs, I think, equally, although for different reasons. I think that in their short dance, their chemistry and their, technical prowess really comes through. And I agree with you that the free dance was a little bit more cautious than I would have liked to see. I think that it definitely has room to grow, but even with, that that restrained quality, they were able to score over 100. So I think that it really tells you something about the quality of that program, and if they can continue to work on just selling it, a bit more, then the program could reach, I think, even greater heights.
No, definitely. I can agree with that. And now, real quick, we want to talk about the Grand Prix final qualifiers. So we have all three teams here, the Shibutanis, Bobrova and Soloviev, Hubble and Donahue, making the Grand Prix final, along with Caitlin Weaver and Andrew Poget, Anna Capolini and Luca Lanote, and Madison Chalk and Evan Bates. First time that I believe any country has qualified 3 ice dance teams to the Grand Prix finals, so this is huge for American ice dance. What are your thoughts on this field?
I think overall, this is like the most open of the fields. You could really see each of these teams getting on the podium just with the strength of their programs. Weaver and Poget are the only team coming in with 2 wins. They beat Capolini and Lanote, who beat Chalk and Bates, so it's kind of that domino effect. I expect Chalk and Bates to be better at the final than we saw them at their 2 events. I don't think it's necessarily that they aren't any better than they were last season. I think it's just the content of their programs. Neither one of them gives you a moment. At an ice dance, I think we really look for moments. So that'll be a really good field. But I really couldn't pick somebody to win. It's going to take a lot of data analysis for me to pick somebody.
I think just going off of my gut, I would have to peg Weaver and Pogé as the winners, just because they've looked so strong at both of their events, and even though they don't have my favorite programs of the season per se, I think that they've really made a case for themselves in terms of consistency. Now, I do think that silver and bronze are definitely open to anyone. Although, like I mentioned before, I have a feeling, again, it's just a feeling, it's instinct. I can't, begin to explain it, with statistics or anything like that. But I have a feeling that only one American team is going to get on the podium, because you have, Cappellini and Lenotte, who are equally strong and who have so much experience just under their belts. And I think that Weaver and Pogé and Cappellini and Lenotte are, I think, favored for top two, but the bronze is, really anyone's game. So it'll be interesting to see how these teams stack up against one another after, the different lengths of time that they've had to prepare.
No, absolutely agree with that. So I think we are going to close out this episode of Lutz and Glory. Thank you so much, Meghan, for coming on such short notice, but also doing such a fantastic job recapping with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to do this. I really appreciate it.
All right, so as always, you can follow Lutz and Glory on Twitter at Lutz and Glory. You can read our rarely updated blog at lutzandglory.blogspot.com. I will link to Meghan's Twitter below if you liked what Meghan had to say and want to hear her personal thoughts more. And I'll also link to one of her USFSA Fan Zone blogs as well if you're interested in that. So yeah, thank you for joining us on our recap for NHK Trophy, and hopefully will be back for our Grand Prix final recap coming up in a couple of weeks. So, as always, for Lutz and Glory, I am Bronwyn.
I'm Kathy, and I wanted to mention real quick, we just tweeted out a link for a guest spot on one of our podcasts in case in the future, one of us has to be gone for some unforeseen reason. You can apply to be the third guest podcaster, I guess, on Lutz and Glory. So there's that. I'm Kathy.
And I'm guest Meghan.
And we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.